what's up everyone? Talplay here and welcome to another video. And in today's video, we are gonna talk about the recent video games. Do they really suck or just the developers become way more lazy in this couple of years? And it seems like video games nowadays is not up to par to the old games in the last decades.
Just a disclaimer, we are not trying to make any remarks to any kind of developers. We love everybody who are trying to do their best to create this industry and deliver on excellent games, but because it has been bothering us as players and we think that other players as well felt the same way. And besides, we know very well that prices have been increasing in the last couple of years and they continue to increase, but we want to address this one because we feel like the price increase may not be justifiable for some games out there that come with this kind of issues. So without further ado, let's get into this.
Video games nowadays has a lot of problems in regards to optimization, and I'm gonna give some best example for this. Number one is Callisto Protocol and as well Forspoken. As you may know, the two games uses different engine. Callisto Protocol used Unreal Engine and as well Forspoken used Luminous. But we cannot really blame the engine, can we? Or is it the developer is not trying enough to fix those issues in regards to the optimization of the game before release? These are only the two games that I've given as an example, but there is a ton of games out there that has been released last year 2022, which is the Warhammer Dark Tide, the Chant, and other games that we might not know that having this kind of problems. Well, we all know that it's not only the developers to be blamed about this, it's as well the publisher, due to the fact that the publisher is rushing the developers to finish this game, and the worst thing that can happen is that they release the game, but in hindsight it's in early access even though it said that it's full release. And it's really bad, especially for the players who's just taking a blind eye, because that means this AAA company will just take advantage of us if we don't share our thoughts about this.
And honestly, we have seen a couple of YouTubers out there who have been able to receive a free copy for a particular game. We're not gonna name exactly which game, and instead of being honest about their issues when it comes to optimization, we've noticed that they were quite biased and people just discover these issues as they play the game. People who had serious GPUs that were able to run pretty much any game just simply struggle to keep a consistent frame rate when it comes to that type of games. And to be honest, the games don't need to honestly really look that spectacular in order for them to run well. We've seen cases where games just simply look stunning and all, and they run perfectly fine over 60 frames per second. So it's all about the time and consistency that developers put in order for the games to run in a decent manner, so that people with lower end or mid-tier GPUs can actually enjoy. Because if you look at the graphical performance and all the increases, you will notice that it's not such a big leap that deserve to have this kind of stutter problems.
And other things that is bothering us for quite some time now is the bland NPC in the game. And the best example for this is Cyberpunk. As you may all know, CD Projekt already update the game and there is still going on update with this game. But of course, when it was first released, there is a ton of problems in the games, including FPS drop, bland NPC, which we're gonna talk about right now because, oh my gosh, I played Cyberpunk and I can feel that the AI is just really bad, and the AI itself, it doesn't really give you that much problems, especially when it was first released. And this is really bad because it's not really Cyberpunk who had this issue, but there is a ton of games out there that was released in these recent years. And if you will compare it, like for example Skyrim, to the recent games that we have today, Skyrim has way better NPC in the game, but of course they won't beat the master of NPC, which is Red Dead Redemption from the developer Rockstar.
Of course, every game has its own uniqueness, and when it comes to NPCs, they are not required to be at the same same level as Rockstar does their own games, but at least to have a decency of actually making characters and NPCs in the world that actually fit in that world and don't feel in any particular way shallow, empty, and simply walking about like zombies. If we really wanted to have games where the characters would just walk about and just moan to themselves and do all those kind of things, we would rather play something that has zombies in them. So what we really would like to see that developers would do, and as well of course publishers, would be the possibility to make characters have a little bit of more life into them, not just sitting around, not doing anything, not being able to interact with them, not being able to listen to their story, instead of filling up a world where it's full of dead NPCs that just walk about or just stand there. It would be much better if we could have something that we could communicate and maybe hear a little bit of their backstories, as we've seen in games such as Witcher. If you played the first one, pretty much every single NPC out there was able to share a little bit about themselves. And I know that this can take quite some time to work, but considering the fact that we are paying full price for some games that feel the way they do in nowadays, just doesn't feel justifiable enough for that particular price.
Another topic that will make us more disappointed in the industry nowadays when it comes to video games is the open world. We know a lot of us can relate, especially players who love Ubisoft games. I am not a fan per se of Ubisoft, but I played Assassin's Creed, the first one, and as well the recent one, which is the Valhalla. Open world is not so bad. Actually, there are other games that they really pulled it off, like for example Red Dead Redemption, GTA, and as well The Witcher. And that is why we wanted to be part in this list, because we noticed that a lot of game developers or company, AAA company, love to make open world. They think that players will really love the game, just making it big and visually pleasing, but most of the developer forgets that the quality of life is what makes the game much more interesting and fun to play.
Another great example for open world is Yakuza 0. I've been playing it recently, and I can say that despite being a very small section of Tokyo and Osaka, the world itself is filled with a lot of side quests and interesting characters that actually make the whole experience a lot longer than I anticipated. I know that most of Yakuza games are like that, but they are a great example that you don't have to make an open world that is so large that there's nothing that you can actually fill it up to make it more interesting.
And that's what makes it sad even more in the gaming industry, because gaming company nowadays just focus more on open world games, and they thought that it's a best take for it, but they don't really listen to the community, what we really want to see in the game. We really don't need an open world game as long as it makes it the story much more interesting, or there's so much things to do and the NPC is not bland. Usually the ones that we've talked about recently, it goes all in one in the open world games. If only the developers or the gaming companies will try to see what it really needs to make a better open world games, yeah, why not? But if it's gonna be so hard for them to actually reach the goal that they want for that game, I think it is better to focus on making a game that is smaller world but filled with lots of things to do, and the NPC is not bland as we said it.
Another thing that really bugs us is the fact that some games, especially RPGs, offer the illusion of choice. Of course, I'm talking about having the ability to have decisions, and ultimately they don't result in anything. A clear example was the ending of Mass Effect 3, if you wanna have an example. But there are others that do the same thing, and I feel like it's a shame of actually having them. We perfectly understand that it is quite difficult to make so many decisions and branching out, but honestly, developers don't need to create game that actually has all this kind of roots and experiences when they can tell a compelling story that is really meaningful despite the outcome of everything. And I know that a lot of the times RPGs are trying to do this because they want to give you these choices, but in the end it really ruins the experience when you find out that after picking up one choice or the other, it results in the same thing, and it didn't even matter in having so many pointless dialogues when you could just simply go with one single line or two options as yes or a no.
Besides the fact that the choices doesn't really matter even if the game gives you these choices, the other problems that we have is that when the game gives you these choices, it's not clear enough for you if that's the one that you want to respond. Like for example, it's just a word over there, but when you pick that word, it sounds so rude and you don't want that outcome to be like. You know, those kind of problems that we have in this kind of games. I wish the developer, when they're making this kind of games that choice matter, they need to put there a full sentence, not just by word, because it can make the players really confused. And I'm pretty sure that we play this kind of games, and I'm gonna give a best example since I played this game. It's called The Chant. The game is good and all, but when it comes to choices, it's really disappointing and very confusing. That's why I didn't even bother anymore to actually play the game after I finished it. So yeah, what do you guys think? Let us know what other games that you play that is really fit in this list.
Another issue that we have is overhyping games, especially with super good looking graphics or awesome cinematics that is nothing like the game itself. A great example is Anthem. We also have seen it in Watch Dogs from Ubisoft, and as well from a recent game, Forspoken. It does look stunning and all, but obviously it is shallow in many areas, and we think that graphics is not everything, and I know that it captivates a lot of people, but it is a big issue when it comes to that, because overhyping games for what they truly are not is an actual problem, and we've seen that as well with No Man's Sky as well. There were so many promises made about the game, and obviously right now it is in a much more better place as it used to be because of the amount of content and hard work the team has put. But when it was first launched and promised, it was overhyped. Everybody was having a big expectation for this game, and it didn't deliver at the first glance. So it took a while until they redeemed themselves, and yeah, it was really disappointing. We had Cyberpunk. It came with a lot of promises and it didn't deliver. There were a few features that were supposed to be in the game, but they were taken out because of the development, and I perfectly understand it, but they should have been addressed early on before the whole launch and not have those features missing from the game, because it is really turning off a lot of people, especially ourselves, when it comes to that. So I try to avoid being hyped, but I know that Armea sometimes falls into this trap because visually they really stand out, they're really gorgeous, and as well the cinematics in the games. Of course, that's not what really makes the whole game. We're not here for only the movie, we're also here for the gameplay and other elements that really makes those games unique and special. And we can see those kind of games that really keep us hooked up for hours on end. You have survivals, you have role-playing games like Skyrim or Witcher that last a long time, and then you have Red Dead Redemption that has so much to it, and it's not all about the graphics. Of course they look great, but it's not only about that really makes them a great example in our list.
Before we end the video, we wanted to give you a bonus, and we wanted to talk about the rush games. Everybody knows about this. This is the biggest problem right now in the gaming industry because we have a lot of early access games. Don't get me wrong, I do mind the indie companies because they do really need the financial support for them to finish the games, but even the AAA companies, they are following in this term of early access game, which is really bad because you know very well that they've got a ton of money to support their games for them to be able to finish it. And not only that, the worst thing is that they said that it's fully released, but once you play that, you can clearly tell that it's not really finished because there's a lot of features that's supposed to be there, but it's just really lacking of content, and you've got to wait a month or more to be able to play those content that they promised you. And it goes hand in hand when it comes to overhyping the game, and they weren't really being honest with us. And one thing that I've noticed is that we became a beta tester that's supposed to be in their company, and we're not getting paid for this. We pay the game, and as well we are testing the game for them, which is a really bad practice nowadays in the gaming industry.
So that's it for today's video. We want to thank you for sticking around, listening to our rant. We didn't want it to turn it in that way, but we wanted to address our thoughts so that way it's clear that maybe it reaches the ears of those publishers or companies that are trying to put out games, because we really think that the gaming industry is turning a blind eye to these issues, and more people are are falling into this kind of trap where they cannot actually do anything regarding this because we have to vote with our wallets, and that's the only way to do it. But it's important that we talk about these things in such a way that we bring more awareness to people and do the best that we can, that when we are choosing to pick a new game to play, we carefully pick it and not just get blinded by other aspects such as overhyping it or bombarding us with beautiful cinematics or great trailers, and in the end the game itself clearly isn't standing up par with its predecessors or other games of that genre. So we wanted to talk about that one. It is a little bit frustrating for us, and I'm pretty sure a lot of you probably feel the same way, but we want to end it in a good note. We want to say that we think that there's a lot of great games out there, and even if some of them follow this kind of principle, they still have proven themselves to be great games, and we definitely think that you should check them out. Even if we put them in a bad spot like Cyberpunk or No Man's Sky or The Chant or Forspoken, although they're not perfect games, they should still be experienced, but be aware of those early signs, especially when you're seeing them on the screen with bombastic graphics and all that kind of stuff. Just be aware about them, make your choices right when you're picking the games, and yeah, I hope that this video helps you out in any kind of way. If you did, please leave us your comment. We would really wanna hear your thoughts on this one. What kind of games you've experienced that you got overhyped, or you've seen this kind of issues? Drop them in the comment section below. We're gonna read them, we're gonna come back with our answers. And if you enjoyed this video, hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and turn on the post notifications so that you don't miss a thing every time we post something new. My name is Vachal, and together with Armea, this has been a Tellplay video. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.
Stay safe and happy gaming.